I think now I'm probably the most courageous I've been, and probably the most, because I'm not doing it for anyone else now, I'm doing it for me.
Today we are chatting to the absolutely blimmin' awesome Gayle. Gayle is a confidence coach with an amazingly large pair of pants. You're going to have to watch the episode to find out what I'm on about. Gayle, thank you so much. And if you are new here, please do like, subscribe, comment, get involved in any of the questions. And we thank you so much. Let's get going. Gayle, welcome along. Thank you so much. I've been told I'm not allowed to tell my story about your surname, so I'm not going to tell that story, but I am going to start at the very, very beginning. Put a message in the comments if you'd like me to tell that story. Gayle, let's start at the very beginning. What is it you're trying to achieve? Now, I feel I need a little bit more. I'm going to give you a bit of thinking time. That could be at work, in your business, that could be in your personal life. It could be it's all blended together. But what is it you're trying to achieve?
It's a really interesting question because I'm just back from a 2 days, I'm not going to call it a retreat, but a courageous coaches gathering. And I was thinking about this because obviously I kind of guessed that might be your first question. At the moment, I'm on a bit of a, I'm not going to use the word journey because we don't like that. I'm on a bit of a road to being more courageous. So the whole reason I did it's Dare to Lead by Brené Brown. So if anybody is familiar with the work of Brené Brown, she's got a book called Dare to Lead, and it's all about stepping into your courage and being okay with vulnerability, and also it sits perfectly with my business, but also with me personally. So I'm on a real road to being more courageous because I know that when I push myself out of my comfort zone, that's where I learn and grow best. So that's where I'm at the moment on this kind of road that's twisty and turny.
And when I hear the words courageous coach and like not a retreat, but a retreat, I just think, like, were you like around a campfire circle, running around and burning things? Like that, that's what I was thinking.
Like in Pitch Perfect.
Like in Pitch Perfect.
Is it 2? Yeah.
No. So Paul did say this to me. He's like, "Are you going to be singing around the campfire?" And I was like, "Maybe if we are, I'm getting in my car and coming home." It was a beautiful wedding retreat in the middle of the Dorset countryside in an old farmhouse. So it felt like you could not have run that in a hotel. You just couldn't. The vibe just wouldn't have been right. So it was in, beautiful countryside, what is traditionally a wedding venue. So it's absolutely beautiful. I had this massive room, 4-poster bed, all to myself. Even the bath was purple.
That is very cool. Had they done that on purpose, or was that coincidence?
Well, when I was showed to my room, the lady that was facilitating it, she said, I said, "Oh my God, the bath's purple." She went, "Oh, it's as though I planned it." I was like, "No, you just could have left it there and gone, yes, Gayle, this was all planned for you." But no, it was beautiful.
Extra tip for the customer service.
Yeah, definitely. Ticking the box.
Can I just say, I've never heard of Brené Brown until this week when I think I've seen her name everywhere, on everything, mentioned by everyone.
How have you not heard of Brené Brown?
I don't know. Does she is her target audience more female? No? Okay.
I don't think so,
Because sometimes, that might mean
your good friend to the show, Ricky Look, absolutely lives by Brené.
Oh, okay. Perhaps it's that kind of, the thing when you crash, if you're looking at the tree, you hit the tree. Perhaps it's a bit like that this week, where Brené Brown's a bit more topical, so I'm now seeing it everywhere. But although her name might have been there forever.
So I'm interested, Gayle, because you went to a confident coaches session. Yeah. But you work in confidence as well, don't you? So how does that lie? I mean, are you not confident? Or you've said that you are trying to be better in terms of that sphere for you. What makes you less confident?
God, it's a great question, isn't it? So I don't think any of us are confident all the time. I think it's a bit like a roller coaster. No. Alan, that was your perfect opportunity to talk about the Thumpreneurs Day Out. I kind of led you into that one, right? But it is like a roller coaster.
Thumpreneurs Big Day Out, July 11th.
See, there you go. I'll line them up. You can knock them down. I like a roller coaster, isn't it? So you start at the top, you're feeling really confident, then suddenly something comes along and smacks you in the face, and you're going back down on that roller coaster. And there are some situations for me where I don't always feel confident. It could be anything as well, from sometimes if you're on holiday, Paul might go to the bar, and I'll go, "Oh God, no, we don't want to do that." And he's like, "Really?" To situations that maybe I don't want to go to because I'm not going to know anybody, or is all the stuff that everybody feels. But if I'm talking about confidence and doing it, I've got to do some work on my own confidence as well. And
Sure.
the Brené Brown thing appealed to me because it was about courage. And she talks about you can't get to courage without being vulnerable, but I believe you can't get to confidence without having courage. So I think that you've got to step into your courage to feel confident. I think that the courage bit comes before the confidence piece.
I love that. I love that. Alan, I feel like today, I'm going to say for the benefit of our listeners, before we hit record, Gayle and I were in stitches because Alan had to go and have a word with himself. You had to walk off screen, give yourself a little slap around the
but
cheek.
what have I
and go.
done for you to bring that up now? I was quite happy listening.
But sometimes you look really, really, really pensive, like you're about to
It's
crack
'cause
into
I'm
a question.
listening.
And then I open the question.
But what I like about topics like we're on now with Gayle is I like to think about it, and then in a moment I'll come up with something and hijack the podcast episode like I do. Even my dad told me off for hijacking one of the podcast Elsie Moore's podcast episode. He said, "Was that Elsie's episode or your episode, Alan?" I was like, "What do you mean mine? Wasn't that at Christmas?" He went, "Exactly." So yeah, thanks,
Told
Dad.
off by his dad.
Feedback from my dad. Look, I find the whole confidence, courage thing. And I was thinking about Emily's question to you going on this retreat. You know, that's your world. Why? But it's like everything, isn't it? There is no. It's like happiness is not a destination. It's the journey. It's like all of these things. It's continuously going. And if it is in your subject matter and what you work with other people on or support other people, or we try not to say the help other people, but there's still like a bit like retreat, there's no right word. Why would you not be going on it to increase your skill, your knowledge, your understanding and everything else? Surely, yeah?
Yeah, and for me, right, I love learning. So my background is I've always loved learning. My background's learning and development before I set up my business. And for me, again, the learning is not about the outcome. It's, oh God, I can't get away from this journey road. It's about the adventure.
We say adventure.
Adventure. It's about the
as an
adventure. Yeah. And kind of what you learn about yourself along the way. And the reason that I originally did the Brené Brown Dare to Lead for coaches, which is the person that runs it has been trained by Brené Brown herself. And she went over to Texas and spent some time to get, the facilitation and everything, which I thought was incredible that she'd actually spent all this time with her. And I'm not a fangirl of Brené Brown, but I love the premise of her work. But I learn when things are take a longer time because I've got time to put it into practice. I've got time to make changes, do things and go, "Oh, that didn't work very well. I'll retry this." So, and I think if I'm not learning and growing, then my clients aren't either, and my business isn't either. So the learning thing for me, learning about myself, is really, really important for me. Really important because I think I can only be a courageous, better version of myself if I continue to learn. And I don't think there's ever an end to that.
There is never an end of it, and this is something we really sort of live by as well. Is that there's no such thing as a ceiling to how much information you can have in your head, and it can only make you better.
I mean, sometimes I feel like my head is at capacity, but I think that's a separate conversation.
I saw another really good post yesterday. It wasn't about confidence or courage, but it was about that it's never too late. And I think it was about a woman on LinkedIn. She was just celebrating her 50th birthday, and it really bugs me. I can't think of her name right now, so it'll put that in the notes at the end as well. But it was about the fact that actually more business owners, it said, when they start their businesses in their late 40s than someone in their early 20s. It was about the fact that they have more IPO at the end of it. They have this, they have that, and basically all the things that happen when you're later on in life, and if you just give it that chance to have a go. And I think some people get to that point where they are, they've done their formal learning, they've done this, and that's all they do to kind of, they become not stagnant, but they plateau there. And I think it's really important for us all, if we are aspiring to do better or have bigger dreams, whatever they are for you, insert whatever that goal is, we have to accept that learning is part of that journey, that adventure as well. And I don't read as many books. I have a degree in English, but that cut my love of reading doing that. So I don't tend to read as many books, but I'm always reading information on the internet. I'm always listening. I love a podcast. I do absorb a lot of information on a daily basis, and also the conversations that we all have. I love that the best because I could probably know more about Brené from just talking to you than actually reading her book.
Can we just go back to Brené? So you went on a Brené Brown retreat and she wasn't there?
No. So
you're mixing.
So the person that has facilitated the course that I went on last year has done the has been trained by Brené to deliver the work.
Yeah.
Right.
So
okay.
she's like an accredited facilitator. I think there's only
I'm just
like
thinking
17
Brené's
of
living
them.
the dream then.
Wow. Yeah,
Sorry,
you say that.
Thinking...
Yeah. So I mean, she's been absent for a while, Brené Brown. For those people that might have followed her, she's been through some quite significant life things. She lost a parent. She's always reevaluating and learning, and you know, sometimes she doesn't always get it right. So she's been quite absent for a while because she has a podcast and newsletter, and she's launching something now that's all about being awkward, brave, and kind, which I really like that as well.
I like that.
But isn't that a great testament to her, though?
We need to talk about Gayle
we will
in
be
a
talking about
moment.
Gayle, but it's a good learning for anyone in business as well. Is that she's built up such a legacy that yes, she's not present at the moment and things are going on, and it just shows that it happens to anybody, and big stuff, chunky stuff, heavy stuff happens that we get bogged down by that, and that's okay, and to give yourself time and space to deal with that, and hopefully she is. But also, it's the fact that she's built such a legacy of advocates and supporters and people who champion her message.
That's the
it.
point,
It's building
isn't
that
it?
audience that actually she can step her foot, take her foot off the gas, and that message is still rolling out. Even in this podcast right now, and Alan didn't even know who she was.
Well, no, I'll obviously go down a wormhole after this to find out more, but excited now. Right, Gayle, let's bring it back to you if that's okay.
Of course.
So you're a confidence coach. Where's this come from, right? So I like to go back to the beginning. That's what I like to do.
Not birth today.
Not birth today.
Not today.
Whatever. Let's
we did that with
it's about Gayle.
We did that with Imogen Tingay. Like, when I was born, we're going that far back, are we?
Yeah, but it was relevant.
It's a long time ago.
Relevant,
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
tell us about it. Where's it? Right. So. I think you just said your kind of career was in L&D, learning and development. Have you always done that? Was that the desire from a young age? What was the adventure to get to where you are now, and why?
Okay.
Obviously in there as well.
Yeah. So my career background is in retail. So Emily, to your point about degrees, I've got a retail management degree, and it didn't teach me how to run a store or how to manage people. I failed fast and learned at the time, doing it on the job. And so as I did various retail roles out of uni, I'd always worked in I know we talked about the Skegness Pier Burger Bar way before we started recording, but actually I also worked in a gift shop and I loved it. I just loved chatting with people and, I loved doing the displays and all of that. God, that's going back a long time when I had like curly hair and all of that kind of thing. And then...
a close-knit perm.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And actually, I got into trouble with my dancing teacher for that close-knit perm because I was always the girl that had ringlets. So I could play the girl in, most of the things at the dancing school. And then when I had a perm, she selected me to play boys instead. So clearly I made a mistake with my perm at that point. Which didn't bother me too much. So when I did my degree, I then went off and did various different retail positions. And my final retail position, I ended up at Monsoon Accessorize, which I loved. And I did a re-site of the store. I actually managed the Chichester store. And it was a really small store. I think I had like 18 members and it was something like really small, like a 600,000 turnover store. It was tiny. And if anyone's listening from Chichester, you'll remember it was by the cross. It was really small. I think it was also haunted. And then Monsoon bought some Dixon's stores. Anybody remember Dixon's? They were on the high street.
Yeah.
They bought something
like your brother worked at
yeah.
Dixon's.
Well, they bought something like 10 of the stores, and they bought the one in Chichester. And so suddenly, I was the manager of the store there, and I suddenly now got 53 team members, I think, at the height of it. Like the first Christmas, and it was a top 20 turnover store. So I'd made that big change. And there's something for me in I remember the first night getting home, and we lived over at Whiteley at the time, and we'd ordered Domino's because it was late. It was late. Normally I'd get home at like 6 o'clock. This time it was like 8 o'clock. I'd got 4 tills to cash. I remember sitting on the floor in the living room eating this pizza and kind of going, I don't think I can do this. I can't be getting home at 8 o'clock every night. This is ridiculous. I mean, and apologies to anybody working in retail now, because I know that's now the norm, but when I did it, it wasn't. And I just remember Paul saying, course you can do this, this is meant for you, this is, and I think that was the first time I ever heard my inner critic, actually, was in that moment. And then I went on to work for Ann Summers, which, if you know me, you'll know that I was there for 12 years, and it's a female dominated environment, and I think the confidence theme, the empowerment thing carried on through my career. I went to Ann Summers as a training officer for retail, so I was relevant because I'd run a store, I knew what it was like, but it combined this passion that I had of working with people to develop them and to grow and to learn, which I'd done all the way throughout my career, probably with some success and some not. But I went off and got myself trained, got a certificate in training practice. I think now it's a fancy diploma in learning and development, but when I did it was training. And got the role at Ann Summers, and I was there for 12 years, and I was championed. I worked bloody hard, don't get me wrong, I mean, I was travelling around the country for the first few years, then I travelled from Chichester to Croydon for the rest of the time. I think I did 25,000 miles a year, which is once around the circumference of the earth in a year. Yeah. But I loved it.
I love how you know these facts.
I know. Well, you have to find out these facts, right, when you're doing that much driving. These things drive you to distraction.
You've got a lot of downtime. Yeah.
A lot of downtime, a lot of M25 time. And I loved it because it wasn't a traditional training role. I got involved in loads of different stuff. Some stuff we probably don't want to talk about, but some stuff that was, like values, focus groups. I delivered a customer service and training program. I delivered bra fitting. All of those things that I think built my confidence. And then in that female environment that was nurturing and empowering as well, with obviously some great men that were there too. It wasn't all women. But I think that is where the confidence came from. If we go back to before that, as I mentioned, the dancing school, and the dancing school for me, I think gave me confidence to get on stage, to do things, to push myself out of my comfort zone. But you don't think about that, do you, at the time? You just kind of go for it and do it. And...
So my question from what you were saying was, you were talking about the female empowered environment and the confidence that came as you grew in that role. So if we put confidence on a scale, or not even a scale, it can be binary on off actually. Were you saying you weren't confident before that and that allowed you to establish that? Or did you just see it all part of the adventure, because we're not saying journey, and it started back in the dancing?
Yeah, I think you're right. As I reflect back on that, I think it started back in the dance school, in the, whenever that was, early 80s maybe. I think what Ann Summers did for me probably was pushed me out of my comfort zone to deliver stuff that I never thought I'd ever be able to do. So it gave me...
Jobs like that. So, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, go on.
No, because I actually feel we might be, I say this a lot, but I think our paths aren't too dissimilar in some respect.
It's amazing how that happens, and we align ourselves with similar people in our circles. Who knew?
But what I find interesting when I keep discovering how similar we are is I actually like change and difference. So, even downstairs, Emily and I'll come back to my retail big corporation thought process in a minute. Even when we're talking about the Funpreneurs Big Day Out, and this is not a crowbar in, it's just part of the story, I was kind of going, wouldn't it be nice if we get some new, some organic people, some people we don't know, because we love the people we hang out with. It's why we hang out with each other. But actually, where we get energy from is the kind of the complete randomness and the newness and everything else. Anyway.
Yeah, so basically, just refund your ticket, please.
No. You don't want me there.
You're not.
Yeah, we do.
I think you're right,
anyway,
though. Sorry, go on. Your point, mate. Go on.
No, you go on. It's your podcast.
Well, I was just going to say, I think where you have that newness and those different people that come in, that's where your challenge comes from, right? And that's where your different thinking and your growth. And when you do stick to the same people, it just becomes your truth. and it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, of course we're aligned, of course we're the same, of course we're similar, of course we've got different paths. But then somebody else comes in and you realise how different you are. And how differently they do things. At the gathering, I'm not going to call it a retreat, at the gathering, one of the activities we did was to write a poem, and it was about us, and it was called I Am, and it was really powerful. And we all read our poems out to each other yesterday, and there was only 8 of us, and some people had rhymed them, some had talked about their family, some hadn't, and they were all completely different. And suddenly you realise that we were all there with one purpose, but we were all completely different people, and that we could all learn different things from each other. So I think it's important to have those external influences in all the time for your growth and learning. Yeah.
It is, because it's that classic, you're the average of your 5 friends, right? So you kind of like, I always have this theory about friends, that you've got geographically located friends. So like they're the ones you go to school with or you happen to work with. And actually you're kind of clutching at straws in amongst those ones to find the ones you really connect with. But when you go out on a path like what we are all doing, it's actually a bit easier to find friends, because we've already narrowed it down, because we're looking for other people who may, run their own business. They get it, right? And then in amongst that, you've then got people who go through their own challenges, parents, etc., etc. The challenge being is you become the average of your 5 friends. So you're all growing your own business. But actually, you need to disrupt that. You do need those external influences. You do need the person who's very different to you, and it's really easy. These are old kind of. I feel these are old corporate cliches off the 90s about yes people and everything else. But in 2024, there's probably more yes people than ever, because we don't want to upset people, mental health issues and all this other stuff. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that in a kind of life. We've got nice people around us. I want people who are going to go, actually, Alan, I think you're being a bit of a donut. Why don't you, yellow tuxedo should try this or something. I kind of want those people. So yeah, I think the disruptors to our circle of yesness would be very welcome.
So you spent 12 years at Ann Summers.
Pretty much, yeah.
And for someone like you, how did you, with everything Anna's just said, and you've just been alluding to there as well, in terms of that difference, was that an okay 12 years? That's quite a long period of time to be in one particular position. Or was it the fact that the type of position you were in gave you that variety that you crave as well?
Yeah, so I think
That's what I was gonna say,
at the end of the day, Ann Summers is quite a small family business. Certainly when I was there, and with a massive presence, right? You don't come across many people that haven't heard of Ann Summers, so the brand presence is quite incredible. And I think that it was a long time, and I don't think I ever saw myself being there for that long. But I think that my role definitely changed and moved and shifted. And I think there was always something different. There was always something going on that was new, that was like exciting, that I could get involved in. And I think towards the end, what happened for me, this is not a reflection on them, but I think I probably outgrew the roles. I think I'd got to that point that actually I want something a bit different. I'm not quite sure what that is. Yeah. But I'm not sure my place here is quite right anymore for whatever reason. And then at that point, I knew that was the time, that it was time to move on and do something different. So I don't look back at that at any point up until probably 10 and a half years in, where I go, oh, I need to leave now, because there was always something different that was going on that made it interesting and exciting. And I also thought that Ann Summers is something different. It promotes, there's always an emotion involved with it. People have their own opinions of it, for everything from people that want to tell you everything about their sex lives through to people that get up and walk away from you. So, there's that span, which that was exciting for me, watching people's reactions. And it was different. I loved the idea of working for a different kind of retailer.
Okay. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think we talk about retail a lot on the podcast. I think a lot of business owners have gone through retail, and it is fantastic. And the customer part is really good. And it's kind of a shame that the hours and the other kind of struggles that come with it exist, because on the surface, it's almost the perfect role. But what my question I'm thinking of now is, so you recognise in hindsight the courage you were growing and the confidence and everything else, throughout it. Did you know that at the time? What was the tipping point where you went, actually, I'm feeling really great from my experience here. I'm now going to go and work with other people on it. Was there a tipping point?
Oh, the eyes went then.
Yeah.
No.
Well, what I was thinking was, isn't it? That's a really interesting question, actually, because I'm not sure I've recognised that until I'm in my business. So I don't think at the time, with Ann Summers, I recognised that I was being courageous or different, or I was doing my job. That was how I saw that, and I was determined to, do a good job and all of that kind of thing. But I don't think it's now until I'm looking back now, and I've got my business, and my business is 5 years old. In some rooms it's been the oldest business in the room, and I'm like, I'm not sure how I feel about that either. But hang on, this is still supposed to be like, I'm supposed to be like a startup kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think now I'm the most authentic Gayle. I'm Gayle, right? I'm not Gayle from Ann Summers or Gayle from Chichester, a store, all of that kind of thing. I think now I'm probably the most courageous I've been, and probably the most, because I'm not doing it for anyone else now, I'm doing it for me.
Yeah.
So in that case then, and what made you leave? So you're sat on the sofa chatting with Paul, and he's going, come on, you can do this, and you're in a critic, you recognise these things in hindsight, in retrospect. So in that case, if you're at Ann Summers and having an amazing time, because if you're happy to give the time, jobs like that are amazing, right? Because even you've talked about the variety and everything else. So at some point, and you said you kind of started on this, you've gone, nah, it's time for the next thing. What makes you then go, I'm leaving, I'm going to start my own business, and I'm now working with other people on this? What was that transition?
It's a big leap.
Because I think people, I think that's an interesting thing. Yeah.
So I can't pinpoint a moment where that happened. I can't, for whatever reason. But I remember doing and again, I'd be forever grateful to Ann Summers. They paid for my coach training, was part of my L&D plan, my personal L&D plan, because I was doing coaching at Ann Summers, but it was informal, and I didn't, I was doing it probably like a retail manager does, right? Retail managers coach. It's just not the way coaching is done, in the way you would do it if you've done a qualification. But we all coach, and I loved it. I was running a coaching workshop for people at head office and for retail as well, and I loved the impact that coaching could make. So I think when I was doing my coach training, I remember thinking, maybe there's something in this. Maybe I could run my own business. Oh no, that feels a bit scary. Well, I'm not sure about that. And then as I started to fall out of love with the role at Ann Summers, not Ann Summers as a brand, but kind of where I was at, and what the expectation of the business was versus what I kind of wanted, where I wanted to be. I didn't want to go and start all over again to build up a reputation. I was mid-40s, Emily, to use your point there. I didn't want to go all again to build up a reputation for someone else. It's like, I could do this for myself, so let's see what that might look like. And that's kind of then when it started to happen. But again, I was really grateful that with Ann Summers, I did a contracting role for them for a few months up until COVID came and retail was furloughed, and we all know what happened there. And I did a couple of days a week for them, not in my old role, but doing some coaching with some senior leaders and some, people some managers in the business, which was great because that gave me a great starter for my business.
Can you remember your very first coaching client outside of Ann Summers?
Yes, I can. And this amuses me. So when you're starting a business, you hear lots about you must niche, and you must find your niche, and you must do this, and you must do that. Picture what your niche looks like. So I was like, I'm going to work with women, and it's about confidence. And my first client was a man. which was brilliant. And I remember him saying, yes, I remember him saying, I'd love to. It was about confidence, so that was good. And I remember the Friday morning that he messaged to say, I'd love to work with you. Paul and I went down the pub, and I think we drank the profits from that contract, because we were like, yes, I've got a first client. I also have reflected lots on that client and thought, 5 years on, what a different experience he would have now, what a different coach I am now to what I was 5 years ago. Yeah.
So actually, I've got some questions on that, because I think we don't know any business who's not gone through that kind of evolution, right? Like, are they doing the same thing now as back then? I remember James Gibbons, actually, he won't mind me telling this. He was one of our first ever clients, right? And I think I we did a keyword session for him. We were still trying to work out what we were doing. We still now talk about keywords, but you wouldn't have it by itself. And I remember thinking now, back then, going, how different his session would be. At the time, it was right. So, okay, all right, I've got a couple of questions around niching and ideal clienting, because I've got a little bit of vomit in my mouth when I say those words. Sorry, they don't see.
No, we do.
Positive spin it.
Positive spin it.
It works
they're
for
right.
some.
They're right.
It works for some, not for others.
Yeah.
Do you regret taking his money? Was it because because other people have said they've had I'm not saying you said it was a bad client, by the way, but other people have had a bad client. The first thing is, were they your ideal client? No. That's why they were a bad client then. So that's kind of my first question in that kind of whole thing. And the other part, I think, is about the evolution of the business. How would it now be different? I'm curious, because I think all businesses go through this. So, how would it be different?
The first, was he a bad client? Absolutely not. He was great. He was a great first client. And yes, he was out of what I had thought my niche was. But confidence is applicable to everybody, right? Whether you're male or female. And he made me think, hang on, I'm excluding, quite a big part of the population here by just saying it's female. And do I really want to do that? Because actually, although I'd come from a female dominated environment, for me, I love the mix. So all female things sometimes I struggle with, because I like the mix of the male voice in that. And how would it be different now? I'm a very different kind of coach now. So I think when you come out of coach training, you're taught how to be a coach, and most people will know about the grey model. And I mean, the grey model never features in any of my coaching. It's a great place to start, but it's it's probably great if you're coaching in the moment, I think I've moved on maybe from the grey model a little bit. I think now I'm more challenging, I'm more direct, I'm more courageous. I will, if you're up for challenge, I will push you as far as you would want to go. I wonder if maybe I was a bit too nice back then, and I was a bit too. Whereas now, look, if you're not prepared to challenge and you're not prepared to take action, then we won't be able to work together. I know that.
Absolutely.
And I think that comes from my retail background. So I think the retailer in me has made it pace, action, let's work together. Yeah. But I know that I've worked quite hard to be a different kind of coach. And by that, I mean, I know my style's quite informal. It's quite conversational. I'm not all about theories and models. They've got their place if they're important and I think they're relevant. But I won't give you loads of homework, or it's up to you, right? We're adults. If you don't want to go off and do it, then the coaching isn't going to work. It's not my dip out. But I just think now, if he came back to me, I would be challenging him more, and I'd be pushing him more out of his comfort zone to
but
get
that comes
him to
right back round, though, doesn't it? To always learning and experiencing, and that tapestry of life making you who you are today. And actually, starting your business from today, you are a completely different person to the person from 5 years ago. But
then arguably, and we all know this, you wouldn't be the person you are today if it wasn't for 5 years ago.
Absolutely. And I just think it does change, and I think embracing that change is really important too. Can
we say this without saying Michael Jackson, by the way? Make that change.
You've just crowbarred it.
I love it. I love my little song lyrics in there.
But it is true, and I think what you were delivering 5 years ago was absolutely right for the moment in those 5 years. 5 years ago, what you do now is so much richer and deeper. And what I love about what you've just said there as well is a similar kind of premise to what Nick Knight does as well. Nick is another friend of the show. He is a podiatrist, and he's all about the human, the person first, not the problem. And I think sometimes in the world of coaching as well, that could probably be, I've got this tip, I've got this process here, I've got this model here, I'm going to apply that to you. But actually, you need to look at the human and the issue or the challenge or the, where they're trying to develop to, and really centre it on them before you start putting the theory in place.
No, interestingly, I'm big on this challenging thing. Now, don't say any names, Emily, please. So I used to work in an environment where there was a very softly challenge by choice, and it was, would you like to do it? No, they don't want to do it. And I used to sit there going, well, hold on, shouldn't we be encouraging them to do them? And they would almost go, if you said, will you do this? And they say no, it stopped at the first, that's when it stopped. And it never sat well. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, I'm just saying it never sat. And then there was this other side of the coin that was a bit more about robust instruction. It was a jokey phrase, but it was a bit more, come on, get down there and do it. And they always knew, and I appreciate we're all different and all these other things, and they always knew in the robust instruction way. But after they'd done it, they'd love it. But you had to really push them to do it, And I'm going to be honest, that this may not come as a surprise. I'm much more of a fan of the robust instruction than I am the challenge by choice approach to things, because I understand that type 2 fun and enjoyment does exist. And no one, I mean, look, let's take jumping out of an aeroplane, right? Anyone who's just scared of an aeroplane, I bet you the percentage who would jump out and not have enjoyed it would be so small that it's probably worth throwing more people out the door. Right, that's where my head's at on it. Where does that sit with what you do, Gayle?
I think challenge is subjective as well, and so what in coaching, when somebody says, we use challenging questions, we use powerful questions, they're really challenging or powerful in the eye of the beholder, aren't they? So what my version of challenge might be different. So it's interesting that you use the jumping out of an aeroplane, because somebody might go, wow, that's really brave, that's really courageous. But being courageous for somebody else might mean, I've got to drive to somewhere different, or I've got to leave my phone at home, or and this is the thing as well about courage for me. It's like these everyday little things that make you courageous all build up into something bigger. Because actually, I'm not sure how I would feel about jumping out of a plane. Yeah, I might do it. I don't know. But actually, for me, the courageous bit this week was going to the Courageous Gathering, because I had to drive there. I'd never been there before, even though it was only down the A31, and we've been on that road loads of times. I'd never driven that road before, so that was quite a, where am I going? What time do I leave? What do I wear? All of that, and that felt quite courageous. So I think
I get that.
Yeah, I think it's about, and the other thing about the directive. So in coaching, we talk about a continuum. So sometimes it can be more directive, and sometimes it's less directive, and you move up and down that continuum depending on kind of what's going on for the client. So I might have clients that turn up and go, I just want to vent. And I'll go, okay, well, have half an hour then, and I'll stop them at half an hour, and then I'll be like, so what do you want from me now? Because I've listened to you, what do you now want from me? And then I might have other clients that come along and go, I really want to talk about this. So they're then quite directive with me. And then you get that, okay, so how much can I challenge you? Where, on a scale of 1 to 10, where's the challenge for you today? And then some clients, you end up challenging them, and maybe sometimes you realise, have I done that a bit too far? Because now you can start to see that you can feel the heat rising a little bit, and you can see them welling up, and that's not always an upset thing. That's a frustration or a
frustration. Absolutely.
Yeah. So sometimes it's about you as a coach not looking and listening for those non-verbal signs that, like, how ready for challenge are they, and what does that challenge look like?
I like that. So that's why I'm not a robust instruction coach.
No, you're not.
Luckily, people like you, Gayle, exist.
It is quite frustrating, because we're not coaches, but we work in, I suppose you can call us, in a training.
There's an element of
what we do that is coaching, whether we like it or not, because we are encouraging people to do the thing, aren't we? And I sometimes get very frustrated with people who are clearly coming to us because they want the change. They definitely want the change, or something's rubbing up the wrong way in terms of what they're doing with their online visibility and that kind of stuff. And I'm sitting there, it's really frustrating. I'm like, just do the thing. And I suppose that's
do the thing.
Just do the thing.
That was someone else had a post about do the thing.
But it's the ones who pay you the money but don't want to hear what you've got to say, because it is that element of challenge, or the unfortunate, this is not what you want to hear, but this is what's going to move it for you, unfortunately. Do that thing. They don't always want to hear it. So love hearing from coaches who that is you have that middle ground there where you are slowly coaching them back into that thought process of allowing challenge and change to kind of becoming what they do, because it is we forget as well. I'm not saying we're fortunate, but we are those characters who are quite large and quite excited by different.
I'm not.
What, large?
I'm sorry. It was the character part. Damn.
It's easy for someone who likes change and who likes to do new things to say, well, why are they not doing that? And actually, that's when you realise the spectrum of the human population and how, as you just said, getting in your car and putting your key in the ignition and at least turning the engine on is a big thing for so many people.
So, Gayle,
you just shut my sentence down.
I didn't mean to. Apologies.
Okay,
sorry.
move
I
on.
didn't mean to shut you down. No. It was right, Gayle. We need to wrap up slowly. That's all I was doing. Apologies.
We could be here forever otherwise.
But
we could, absolutely.
no, I know it is one of those. I mean, Emily picked me up for being a bit flat at the beginning. I'm certainly not feeling it now.
Thanks, Gayle.
Thanks, Gayle.
You're welcome.
We find out. That's my pre-end question point. Is I love this. Like I love learning. I love change. I like different things. So when we're having these conversations, it's amazing, because I love hearing and taking it on board. And we always say this. It's a bit like you I don't think you did your story justice about the post you read the other day about the 40-year-old and 50-year-old. So you need to find it. Well, we're not going to tell it now, but we will find it. And my point being is we look at this very tiny kind of high level influences, but actually the amount of amazingness, expertise, specialism and experience and everything else at our level is mind-blowing, right? Yeah. And we love what we do because we pick up all these bits of information from everyone, which then I guess does kind of segue into the last question, Gayle, which was, thank you for your time today, but what we want to know also is if you were going to go back to your younger self, whether it be on Skeggy Pier, at dance class, or wherever you choose, what are you saying to your younger self, please?
I feel like I want to say, pull up your big pants and go off and, just do it.
It's taken 40 minutes
I know.
to get to that.
And I was sat here thinking, I haven't mentioned big pants. Oh my God. And that is it. It's about, you have to take the opportunities. And for me, there's a bit of, and this is maybe only recently, but if I could go back now, I'd be like, don't see things as failures. See them as, actually, it's always an opportunity for learning. And I've had to really reframe that, working for myself. So that is the thing. It's pull up your big pants, go and do it, because you'll learn either way.
I love it. I didn't even think you were going to say that, but I absolutely love that. And we love your big pants as well.
For anyone listening, not watching this, there's a big giant pair of purple pants behind Gayle's head.
And for anyone who's watching, not listening, feel free to hold them up, Gayle, and show us your massive
Hold on.
pants.
I have to move back. Hang on.
She's attached.
I love the fact it's part of the branding setup of where Gayle works.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
show us your big pants. Debbie actually take them off the hanger. You'd have to keep your pants nice, don't you? There you go. There's the big pants.
You do.
You do.
Yeah. Lovingly made by my
Love
mum.
them.
So thanks, Mum. Always give the credit to the people
She's a
that
keeper.
deserve it.
Keep her then.
Totally, yes.
I mean, my pants aren't that ironed. They get.
I thought you were going to say my
well,
mum's
you
pants
know,
aren't that big. I was like, that's a bit rude.
Should always keep them ironed because you never know when you might need them, Emily.
I know. It's the same thing as if I was hit by a bus and they had to cut my clothes open. I'd have definitely mismatching bra and pants every time.
I know we're finishing up, but we had that conversation at Scouts last night. We were discussing what equipment we needed from orienteering, and someone said jokingly pants. So I turned it into a conversation around, well, actually, going commando isn't always good when you're doing running because sweat and everything else.
Goodness me.
And then that evolved into a conversation about you've always got pants on. What if you have an accident and the ambulance brigade come? Ambulance brigade? Are they even called that anymore?
Ambulance brigade.
Gayle,
They are now.
I know. Oh my goodness. Perhaps I am having a moment still. Gayle, we love you. We think you're fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us on Digital Circus Live, and thank you all
not live.
Oh my goodness! I'm going to run away with my pineapple, and I'm going on a retreat because I think I need it.
Too many brands.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
See you next time, guys.
Bye.